Welcome, fellow film enthusiasts, to a brand new episode of The Director's Viewfinder. I'm your host, Derek Johnson, and I'm excited to take you on an extraordinary journey through the captivating world of filmmaking. As a seasoned filmmaker, producer, and director of photography, I worked on a wide range of projects, from indie gems to TV hits and a ton of commercials. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the art and craft of filmmaking, pulling back the curtain on the magic that happens behind the camera. This has been a pretty exciting year for me. I was hired to be the director of photography for a feature film, which we just completed principal photography on about a week ago. And we took a break mid-shoot so I could pop down to Albuquerque and have a screening of two of my own films, and Healing Waters, which screened there and was very well received, and we even took home the Audience Choice Award. And now we begin my next conversation. And today I am speaking with Rose Kreider, and she is also an independent filmmaker here in Seattle.
Thank
welcome,
you so
Rose.
much for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to get into how filmmaking began for Rose and what it's like to get a start in the business. And you also have some movies that are out and some things that are in production. So why don't you tell me how you started in filmmaking?
I actually started in filmmaking is quite unusual. I modeled through COVID, and then I kind of got tired of that and the biasness in the industry. And so I moved on and met people in the acting industry here in Seattle. And with being on set, they inspired me to create my own film. And then after trial and error writing my first feature film, I released my first movie, The Woman, which came out last March in 2022. And then a short time later, I released my first short movie, A Room by the Road, in June same year. And both have won nationally and internationally awards, which is really cool.
That is very cool. So what attracted you to getting into the business?
You know, it was just being an actor, being on set, being around the director and the writers and everyone involved in the crew. And I really loved their aspect and perspective versus what the actors see and do. And I started picking one director's brain when I was in a short for them last summer in July and August. And it just inspired me to consider writing my own movie. And I had a dream in October, and I kind of organically came up with a script right after that. When I wrote it in my journal the next day, I was pondering the thought of, should I even make a movie? And I talked with a couple of people, and they're like, this is a really great idea for a movie. And we created the movie, The Woman, from just my journal.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of great stories come out of personal experience. So that's really a great place to start. Did you go to film school or have any formal training?
No, and I haven't done any sort of training, modeling or acting wise, except for one Saturday class. And there was an acting class that we did expressions and skits in, and it wasn't my favorite. And I said I would never go to pay for a training ever again. And so what I did was, when I got involved more in the acting industry and soon thereafter into the directing and producing aspect of it, I started watching tutorials and I started picking other people's brains that have been in it for a while. And I just kind of followed them on sets and just learned how they operate their film sets. And I just kind of created my own ideas and, philosophies from there. I didn't take any formal trainings. I think I've only paid $250 total for trainings.
Which is great. Filmmaking is one of those trades that there are so many job roles, and many of them you learn on the job. It's one of those kind of trades, and a lot of the technicians and things you don't have to go to film school. It's not going to necessarily make or break you if you do. I also did not go to film school. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
believe you learn on set. You organically learn on set from people. And I feel like reading books or watching videos or watching someone else tell you how they've succeeded in it or like how they act on set, you might not get inspired from those ways. And I feel like everyone has their own path and every single film set is different and you don't really need the formal training. Although as an actor, there's a bunch of different classes you can take that are really popular here, and those people end up getting booked for more opportunities. And so if you're looking to get into the acting side, then I would suggest taking proper classes or trainings. But if you're looking to get into the crew side, then it's just you learn as you go.
mhm. And there's a lot of roles on the crew side where basically, like for instance, uh, there's like a director of photography is what they call an above the line role, and below the line roles are the all the supportive crew that helps the top creatives and producers make the projects. So when you're coming in, with a less experience, a lot of times you end up in a supporting role. So for a director of photography, underneath that, you have like four different possibilities that you could do. You could be one step down as a camera operator, one step down from there as a first assistant camera, one step down from there, second assistant camera. And a lot of shoots, you need all of those technicians to help support the DP to be able to, really work successfully. Because running a film camera is not, it's typically not a one person process. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to like, start out and then you move up your ladder. So you are now focusing on directing, is that correct?
Yes, my main focus is directing. I am co-writing a couple of films that are coming up, and I am looking for producers and grants at the moment so that I can move along some of my pre-production films.
Hmm. And I've noticed in the past few years that it's very common that a director will also be the writer of a project.
Mhm.
Um, did you have any thoughts on that? Because I think also in the independent world, um, you usually end up wearing multiple hats. Um,
Mhm.
Most of the time, um, the crews are smaller, budgets are smaller, so you have to learn a few different skills to keep the production moving along.
I think it's really interesting to go from a large budget to a small indie budget because it's true here. A lot of them, if not most of them, are shorts and they are independent movies. And the director duels as not only a writer, but a lot of times you see people also put themselves in as the main actor. And I'm not that type of person. I like to give everyone an opportunity. I actually enjoy the casting process. I am the type of person that throws myself in as a background. So throughout a movie, the people watching will know that I'll pop in at some point. But I'm not the type of person that wants to be the main actor, the writer, and the director. But you see that a lot here. For me, I'm kind of asking for help when it comes to producing. So I'm partnering with some people for upcoming films, but with writing and directing, that's kind of my thing that I'm comfortable with. However, we have a movie in pre-production called Deadly Delivery, and it's an actual book series on Amazon. And my friend wrote the series, and he came to me with the idea and perspective of, hey, let's combine our talents and we'll write a script and let's change some parts of the book to your liking. And so we've changed some things from the book and wrote a script. And now we're making a movie series from the book series, which is really cool. So I guess for me, I really enjoy the writing aspect just as much as the directing aspect.
So let's talk about your first movie. What was it like, that process going into that first film?
Nerve-wracking because I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that it was the correct path for me. I had a bunch of support and I had a rock star cast and crew. And most of them, it was either their first time operating a camera or first time being a main actor. So it was really everyone's first that I kind of put together in this movie that's done so well. I get this question so often. Almost every time I talk about the movie with someone, they say, "Oh my gosh, what's the first thing you do? I have no idea. I would be so overwhelmed. Where do I start?" And I said the same thing. So for me, I'm really organized and I keep multiple journals and I have many laptops. And what I do is just I take down notes. So when I hear something or I learn something or ask someone how they started, I jot down notes and then I kind of combine my own itinerary, so to speak. And you make sure that you kind of check all boxes just before you go on set. And then, of course, you leave room for any emergencies or fire drills, was what they call them, when you're on set and you have to address. For editing, it was my first time actually learning Adobe Pro. I had never even seen it before. And we used that for 2 months. And there were so many trial and errors all the way up until 2 hours before the movie premiere. We were still editing the film until 2 hours before the movie premiere because there was sound issues in this one scene. But it was a learning experience. It was really fun. And I took a lot away from it.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. A couple hours before the show, and you're still pushing out edits.
Yeah, people were showing up and I was getting called upstairs and they're like, "Hey, this is not working with our system. We can't play it in this theater. We need help because the sound isn't there in this one scene." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so, it was a learning experience the whole way through.
Yeah, it never ends, right?
Yeah.
I like to tell people I think filmmaking is something you can never truly master because there's so many variables that are constantly in flux. It's kind of like an orchestra, but it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. So you always have something to learn, always have something to work on, a problem to solve, and that's part of the creative process is going through all those struggles to get to something great.
Yes. And I definitely learned something from each film set because no set is the same. As much as you try, no set is the same. You have different people, different crew, sometimes different equipment, and different locations. So you have to work with that. And you have to leave room for patience and adjustment. You have to be flexible because if you think everything's going to go perfectly, it won't. And so that's one thing that if someone is interested in getting into the crew aspect of filmmaking is just to consider these variables. As an actor, all you have to do is show up. But with being a director, you run the show, so you have to make sure you're ticking off all of your boxes, but you're leaving room for flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, that's definitely good. Commanding a crew is definitely a big part of being a director.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's basically like two leads on a film production. It's the director and the director of photography. And the director has the vision, and then the director of photography helps manage the crew and helps make sure that the director gets the vision they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really about that chemistry. And that's what I look for when I'm talking with folks who want to be on the crew and make sure that we have a good chemistry, a good communication, and that we're aligning before we end up on the film set.
Mm-hmm. Good. So let's see. So you were 2 hours before your premiere, and you were just exporting a new version that would actually play in the theater.
Mhm.
So then you're in the theater and you're watching your first movie, and I'm assuming that the audience had some reactions. So
Yes.
do you recall that moment?
I it's surreal because I think about this probably weekly, honestly, and it's been a year and a half since it came out, and it's one of my favorite days ever. Only because I literally worked night and day, like for January of that year, all the way until the day of the premiere, which was March 13th. And I got maybe 4 hours sleep each night. So all of your hard work, you see it on screen. And I don't remember actually watching the movie. I remember looking around constantly and looking at people's reactions. It's a drama, and there's some sad parts and there's some shocking parts, and it's crazy to see, like, when I wrote the movie initially, I was hoping to get the reactions I did. And I heard the reactions. Like, people were gasping, some people were tearing up, like things that I wanted to happen. So it was like really surreal that I actually made that happen. And then at the very end, when there were so many questions and people, nice comments, and how well it did on the premiere on Roku TV that night, it was a really, inspiring moment for me, knowing that you can go from being an actor to a director.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so cool. I'll also share with you my first film, which was a psychological thriller. And I had one scene in that short film that I like to call a jumper scene. And it's the idea is that if it's scary enough, you'll get your audience to kind of jump back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had a very similar experience, not remembering watching the movie, but remembering watching the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first experience of doing that as well. And that jumper scene came up, and I watched the whole audience jump back with, like, in fear of what was happening. And I was like, you know what? That's really fucking cool. I'm like, I love that happened.
Yeah.
You just, it's just a thing as a filmmaker that's like, it's like one of your golden nuggets that you get from doing this. You
Mm-hmm.
gave an experience to someone that that entertained them. It gave them something to think about. And there's lots of things, that whole relationship between the film and the audience and what you're doing. I mean, essentially, when you make the film, you actually give it away, because I like to think that when the film is made and out there, it's no longer yours. It belongs to the audience, because they're the ones who really make the final decisions on how it plays out. So,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that's what we all look forward to in hopes when our vision is coming to life, like how we want it. Like, that's really exciting also. And I agree with the aspect of giving it out to the audience because it's theirs, especially if you make a DVD, it's like in their home, which is like everyone's goal, is to have someone own a part of what you created. I think that's the coolest thing. And so I will say, when I made The Woman and wrote the script, as I was writing it, I was hoping that one day it was going to be in people's homes. And knowing where it's at now and how many DVDs I sold just for my first film, like, that was the ultimate goal. And I've accomplished that. So I feel like with every next film I do, it has to be at that same level. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is innovate the rest of the films that are coming forward and do better each time. And so I think that's what a goal is for every single filmmaker, is to innovate, keep innovating and coming up with great ideas and being just as successful as the previous.
yeah. Um, there's a famous DP who says, you're only as good as your last picture.
Mm.
So I really believe that. And that's definitely, something we think about, when we're making. It's like, what's next? Like you were mentioning how it's been over a year since that premiere, and you think about it often. So you get that bug, right? You get that, like, holy cow, now I want to do this all the time. So,
Mhm.
um,
Exactly.
yeah, that's the inspiration, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so, let's talk about, so how did you get, so you have a feature in pre-production now, and it's a documentary. Um, and I have done most of the work I've done in film is documentary. So a lot of people that follow me know that. And um, uh, one of the things we talked about before the call was how you got your idea for the current pre-production. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is my first documentary, and full disclosure, I'm one of the people that if I was given the option of watching a documentary at home or a movie, I would be watching the documentary. So it only makes sense that I would put that on my resume. But how I got the idea for this feature documentary is last year in the summer, Seattle people would know this. There's a 48-hour film festival, and I was an actress in it and on one team, and we were nominated. And during the nominations, everyone gets to view their film. And there was a film that came on after mine that was really biased and not truthful in any capacity, and it really made me sick, and the person I was with got upset as well. And it just didn't make sense because everything that they had added as a fact was not a fact. And so I spoke with my partner, and he and I kind of decided that we should make our own documentary with facts and be unbiased and hope that everyone would want to watch our documentary. And so we're in pre-production for a film that we're actually going to be traveling around the country and interviewing people that we consider as heroes because they've saved lives, or strangers' lives, their own lives, their kids' lives, really everyone that they've encountered when they are owning and holding a firearm. They've saved other people's lives with a firearm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really powerful subject matter. And I think it's a great perspective. And it's something that most of the time when people talk about gun laws and gun culture, they never really talk about how um, it can also save lives. So that's a good perspective. I think people need to think about that as well.
Yeah, it's really shining light on what the news doesn't tell the population. For me, someone that goes to events and advocacies and firearms training courses, and I'm a member at a lot of different locations, and I have my CPL. We're responsible firearms owners, and we see this far too often where we actually have to do deep dive research to find stories of people who have saved lives with a firearm. Unfortunately, what the news tells you is how bad firearms are. And I feel like this is not only an inspirational type of documentary, but it's also an educational documentary.
Mhm. One of the things that documentary film can do if it's successful is it can give you an honest view of a different perspective. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be the one that you have known or believe in. It can just be the other story. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this rolls out. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you. We're really excited, and we've done a bunch of research and we've done preliminary interviews, and we have a lot of awesome people that a lot of the national public haven't even heard about. And I'm really excited because we get to go travel to them because we want it to be in person and really impactful and meaningful. So we're not going to do it over, a YouTube channel and then stick that in a movie. We're going to go visit them. I think there's 5 different states. So we're going to be crowdfunding here in the next couple of months and go visit them. And so I'm really excited. It'll be a really great documentary, and I'll make sure that everyone knows about it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back again once you get a little further along in the project. So,
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it when we're closer.
Cool. So now you've got your first feature documentary in pre-production, and do you have a trajectory for like where you might like to see yourself in, say, 5 years?
Yeah, I would love to be pairing with people in LA. I would love to earn grants and make enough residual income from movies that are out and put that back into my production company so I can make larger budget films. And I'm really looking forward to one day soon, hopefully, going to LA to make movies and talking with companies over there, maybe pitching ideas as well, just things of that nature. I don't want to stay secluded to Seattle. I think everyone's goal is to eventually get to that LA level. And so in 5 years, I'm hoping that I'm going to have a lot of budget to continuously make movies throughout the year. My ultimate goal is to be financially independent with my production company and make 2 to 3 really solid movies each year. That's my ultimate goal in the next, 3 to 5 years.
Well, that's a wonderful goal. It's very ambitious. Most production companies only make one movie every 3 years. So I'd be very interested to follow along your journey on this.
Thanks. Yeah. I don't want to only make one movie a year. I would like to make at least 2 like solid movies and then have one in post-production and then start the next and have that be my life so I can quit my corporate job.
Well, I respect that greatly. So let's see. I was going to ask you what kind of movies do you want to be making in 5 years?
It's a really good question. I get it often. I don't want to be secluded to just one. A lot of people in Seattle, their thing is horror and thrill. And I would like to make one of kind of each category. I want to make one romantic. The ones that I've been doing lately are drama, like drama forward. I've done one crime thriller. But I really do want to make, like, if I like the process of the documentary, which I have so far, I think that might eventually become a more common thing for me. But I kind of want to be in a lot of different realms. Like I want to do a comedy. I really like dramas. I want to do like a gore. So really everything. Like I want to be a Tim Burton, but I don't want to be a Tim Burton at the same time because he's in his little niche, but I want to be at the level that he's at and known in some capacity, but be that person that can do kind of any type of film.
Right. So you have kind of your own style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Like one of my mentors is Werner Herzog or Wim Wenders,
Mm-hmm.
2 German directors that I've loved forever. And both of them have worked on both scripted and non-scripted content. So, and you really know like that whatever kind of films they're making, it feels like it's their film, not somebody else's. So,
right. Yeah. I think with time, maybe I will have a better idea of what my niches, if I do fall under one, that I'm really good at and love to do.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I think I'm just trying to be that person that wears all hats in all different categories. And then eventually, maybe 3 to 5 years, when I do hopefully get to the LA market, I can find my own path, like a lot of people have done. Like I really, really love Dan Levy, who's really great at comedies. And that's a specific type of humor that some people love and some people don't. And so I want to find that like specificity in comedy that people love. That's what's so difficult about doing a comical film. But yeah, maybe one day I'll do like a TV show and we'll see where that goes. But right now, it's just going to continue to be dramas and whatever else comes my way.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for people getting into film?
My only advice would be just to create something. Write down your vision in a journal, scritchy scratch, whatever it takes, and then reevaluate it with someone else, get their perspective that you trust, and just create something instead of procrastinating and being nervous about it. Just create something. That's what I see most often as the advice that I see on like Facebook groups is just create something. Whether it's a short, it could be a 3-minute movie, submit it to film festivals and see what the audience thinks.
Right. And so tell us, where can we see your films?
So right now, The Woman is streaming on 15 different platforms, but the main one is Tubi TV. It's currently in 55 countries and it is 58 minutes long. And then A Room by the Road is on many different platforms also. You can find it on Xumo, that's XUMO TV, or Plex TV. And that's A Room by the Road, and that's 8.5 minutes. And then coming up is Wish You Well, which is a short drama. And that's to be determined on where it's going to be streaming. And the 2 movies to be looking out for that are in pre-production. One is called Deadly Delivery, which is a crime thriller. And we're going to be releasing that hopefully in winter. And then the documentary is going to be released probably next year. We want to get that perfectly correct. So sometime next year to be determined where it's going to be released.
Yeah, cool. And so to keep up to date, do you have a website or something that if people want to follow you?
So on Facebook, if you want to search Rose Kreider, or you can go on Instagram and it's Rose Kreider. Last name is Kreider. And I have a website. It's wixit.com/Rose Kreider, but it's most easily recommended to reach me via Instagram or Facebook.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Rose. It's been great chatting with you today, and I wish you luck on the upcoming production.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you once again. You have made it to the end of the podcast. But before you go, don't forget to head over to kaifilms.com and sign up to my mailing list. And of course, you can get your free survival guide on how to survive a day on a film set. You know, we're all in this thing together, this little war we call filmmaking. So please go ahead and just share this episode on your social media, to your mother-in-law, you know, just about anyone you can think of. And you won't regret, because the future episodes are going to be really exciting. I'll be talking about DPing the feature I just worked on, and we're also about to go into distribution, so we'll have some information on that process as well. I'll see you next week on the Director's Viewfinder.